اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام، عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء اليماني. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء، ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا ابنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم، وسلم لمن سالمهم، وعدو لمن عاداهم، ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، واذهب عنهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. محمد وآله. فقال جبرائيل: يا ربي يتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرنا ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
ہائے موسیٰ کاظم، ہائے موسیٰ کاظم، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی، ماتم ہے آج مومنوں ایسے اسیر کا، زندہ میں اب بھی گونجتا ہے اس کا مرثیہ، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی، زندان کے اندھیرے میں مشکل کشائی کی کرتا رہا دعائیں جو اپنی رہائی کی، لو آج اس کے واسطے زندان کھل گیا، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی، فریاد کر رہی ہیں وہ زندہ کی وحشتیں، کیسے بیاں ہو سکیں اس کی مصیبتیں، بیڑی کے ساتھ کھال بھی اس کی ہوئی جدا جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. کوئی تو آ کے پشت پہ درے لگا گیا، کوئی پیالہ زہر دغا کا پلا گیا. ہائے ہائے لہو لہان ہے جعفر کا لاڈلا، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. دکھنے لگی تھی جس میں متا ہر کی ہڈیاں، کٹ کٹ گئی تھی پاؤں کی بیڑی سے پنڈلیاں. مرنے پہ بھی نہ تو کہ گریبان کھل سکا، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. قرآن کردگار کے پارے ہیں قید میں، رو رو کے 14 سال گزارے ہیں قید میں. آخر وہ آج ہو گیا زندان سے رہا، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. پل پر اندھیری رات کو رکھنے کو آئے ہیں، مزدور اپنے کاندھوں پہ لاشا اٹھائے ہیں. روتی ہے اس کے حال پہ مرکد میں فاطمہ، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. اتنا غریب آج ہمارا امام ہے، دفن و کفن کا سامان کچھ اہتمام ہے. بھائی نہ اس کے پاس بھتیجا نہ محل کا، جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. تلقین اپنے بابا کو آ کے پڑھائیے، مولا رضا یہ لاش اٹھانے کو آئیے. پل پہ رکھا ہوا ہے جنازہ کا جس کے بدن کو قید کی زنجیر کھا گئی. برائے خوشنودی امام موسیٰ کاظم علیہ السلام بلند تر صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
اور محمد و آل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد. سورة البركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. اللهم صل على أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يعدي حقه المجتهدون. الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الصلاة والسلام على الرسول المسدد والمصطفى الأمجد حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وبآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم ومبغضيهم وغاصب حقوقهم من ليلنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and the Merciful. And on that note, I say Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Part of the traditions of the Shia Muslims in general, that we are gathered here tonight to commemorate two events together. One is the wafat of the father of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, and his sixth descendant, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far Al-Kadhim, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We shall take a cursory look at both these personalities and the events that transpired in their time, their contribution towards Islam, their sacrifices to Islam, and the lessons that we have to learn from their sacrifices. Now, when we look at the role played by Abu Talib in supporting the Prophet of Islam, in furthering the cause of Islam during a very difficult period, that is the Meccan period, the Meccan era of the Prophet's life. It was a very, very difficult period of the Prophet's life. We see that as far as the historians are concerned, they are very clear that he was a very important figure in the advent of Islam as long as he was alive. Now, it is to his credit that as long as he was alive, the Quraysh never dared to physically harm the Prophet. They never dare to touch the Prophet of Islam. They also talk about his, the historians, of course, they talk about his contributions, not only by supporting him in the physical sense, means they talk of his contributions, not only that he supported the Prophet in the physical sense, but also through his prestige. He was one of those prestigious Meccan leaders at that time, especially when during the time when the Ahlul Bayt, or when Ali Muhammad or Bani Hashim, they had to go into these 3 years of what is known as the social, political, and economical boycott. They went into a cave, an area which was owned by Abu Talib himself, Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam, which is known as Shaiba Abu Talib. And that was a social, political, and economical boycott by the Quraysh. But what is amazing is that if you look at the historians, although they talk about Abu Talib, I mean, this is so sad, that although they talk about Abu Talib as far as contribution, as far as Islam is concerned, but they always emphasize this point in spite of talking about his contribution and sacrifices towards Islam. They, in the end, will tell you that he died as a kafir. He died as a non-Muslim. And this is where we, the Shias, emphasize this point, whereby we defend the status of Abu Talib. Even now we see one of the fundamental problems that we have now. You see, this has an impact. This branding Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam as kafir has an impact till today in this 21st century. That, see, one of the fundamental issues, the fundamental problems we have in the Muslim world is this mentality known as Takfiri. I'm sure you are all aware of this word or this vocabulary, Takfiri. This word Takfiri is where kufr comes in. You can say verb and adverb. So when kufr comes in, and Takfiri mentality means this attitude where you label and brand all other Muslims as kafir except yourselves, except that one community, right and left. Now, this is the term which has been coined recently, I think maybe in the last 2.5 decades. But to describe the extremist Salafis and the Wahhabis, because it is they who go around today looking at other Muslims, and I'm not talking about non-Muslims. I'm not talking about only Shias. But I am talking about they look at other Muslims, those who do not agree with their brand of Islam, of Salafism, they label them as kafir. They brand them as, they give a label of kufr or fatwa or kufr on them. And it's not difficult, once you have branded an individual or a group as kafir, then it is not difficult to get, ignorant people. There are ignorant people in the Muslim world today more than educated people. And you can look around. More ignorance prevails in the Muslim world today. Look at Afghanistan. Look at Pakistan. And not only Afghanistan and Pakistan, look at the borders of Afghanistan and Pakistan, where there are uneducated, ignorant people who are brainwashed that if you kill one kafir, means one Shia, you get a speedy passage to Jannah where there are fairies and angels waiting for you to serve you. Huris, fairies and angels. This is the type of concoction they have come up with. Now, it's not only the issue of putting this label. Actually, that label leads to the issue. You see what it boils down to? It eventually boils down to the issue of violence that we see in Afghanistan today, that we see in Pakistan today, and sometimes we see in Iraq as well. And other parts of Syria, maybe. Look at what has happened in the Muslim world. Just, sometimes, just a few years ago, since the wafat of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, as is commemorated in a big way in Kazmin, in Iraq, where the shrine of our seventh Imam is located. And you know what happens there? Many of you, most of you, majority of you who have been to Ziyarah, they have seen this, that the Iraqis on a smaller scale, not like Arba'in of Imam Hussein, but no, on a smaller scale, they go to the shrine of the Imam, and some of them, they even walk from their villages. And this is what hurts the Salafis even now. They become so angry, so jealous, and it hurts their hearts till now. And in spite of all the security measures that are taken by the Iraqi government and the Iraqi security forces and the Iraqi police, there are still explosions. Last year, before last, you see a couple of years ago, few years ago, there are still explosions taking place in different areas, and many Zawars are killed on their way to Kazmin. Different areas on the roads leading to Kazmin. And you will see that many Iraqis are killed. So when we look at this, we come to realize that what is happening now can be connected to what was happening in the early days, as far as the historians are concerned, that it boils down to the image of Abu Talib. This, to brand Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam as kafir, it has not been concocted by the Salafis or the Muslims at large in this century or the last century. No, it dates back to the time of Banu Umayyah, to the Khilafat of, to the Banu Umayyah, starting from Muawiyah. And this is actually a product, and its root can be found in the Umayyad era. This is the Banu Umayyah mentality, that the first Mazlum Tariq, as we call them, the most oppressed person in Islamic history is Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam, whom they branded as kafir in spite of all his words and actions and sacrifices in support of Deen Islam and the Risalat of Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, for example, the earliest biography of the Prophet, I'll give you an example, some incidents and anecdotes, and you will understand where this mentality crept into the Islamic history or Islamic society, which goes on till now. The earliest biography of the Prophet, known as Sirat ibn Hisham, which is actually a summary of Ibn Ishaq's Sirah, Ibn Ishaq's Sirah. Now, this original of Ibn Ishaq's Sirah is lost. But what we have now is a summary which was actually compiled. This was compiled during the early days of Banu Abbas, when the era of the Umayyads ended and Banu Abbas took over. So this history or this summary was actually compiled during the early days of the Khilafah of Banu Abbas. I'll give you an example. That this is a conversation from that era that was recorded in the time of Banu Umayyah with a governor who was the governor of the Umayyad dynasty, who was the ruling governor of Makkah. He was a governor of Walid bin Abdul Malik, one of the Umayyad caliphs, Walid bin Abdul Malik. His governor in Makkah, his name is Khalid bin Abdullah Hasri. Now listen to this. This is so sad. He actually one day called a scholar who was a genius, who was known to be an excellent scholar of history of Islam. He was a genius in history of Islam. And he asked him that, I would like you to compile a seerah, means write a biography compile a biography of Muhammad Mustafa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Now, when the governor of Makkah during the Umayyad time made this request to this scholar, he asked the governor a question. Now, it's very important and very interesting to know this. It shows that this person who knew history very well, he knew history very well. He was a genius in Islamic history. He says, he tells the governor, فَإِنَّهُ يَمُرُّ بِي الشَّيْخ عَنْ سِيرَةِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib فَأَذْكُرُوهُ. This is what he says. فَإِنَّهُ يَمُرُّ بِي الشَّيْخ عَنْ سِيرَةِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib فَأَذْكُرُوهُ. He is telling the governor, tell me that when I am compiling, I am writing down the biography of Rasulullah, many events related to Ali ibn Abi Talib are also intertwined. The biography of the Prophet is intertwined with the events and the incidents related to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Otherwise, this biography is dry. There is nothing there in that biography. They are intertwined. So when I write the biography of Rasulullah, do I mention Ali ibn Abi Talib's contribution as well or no? Because he knew their mentality. He knew the Bani Umayyah mentality. He knew that these enemies of Ahlul Bayt, if I write it without questioning them, then it is his neck, as far as he was concerned. And he didn't want to get into trouble. So he's asking him, when I write the seerah of the Prophet, what do I do with the events which are intertwined with Ali ibn Abi Talib? And look at the answer he gives. He says, I don't even like you to translate this. Now, this is the response from the governor. And, you know, between us, we have to realize, we have to understand and realize that what was happening in those days is exactly happening these days, in the 21st century. Same thing. Same thing. Look at the mentality. And the Mazlumiyat, you know, the oppression of Abu Talib and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. This governor of Makkah tells this scholar, La, that when you are writing the seerah or the biography of the Prophet, if anything comes about Ali ibn Abi Talib, cut it out. Censor it, circumvent it, don't write, accept. And then he says, Illa an, you know, I don't even like to mention this, but this is the example that I have to give you for you to know the gravity of the situation. That why Hazrat Abu Talib has been branded as kafir by the Muslims. And he says, no, don't write. Illa an tarahu fi qahri jahannam. Na'udhu billah. That he says the only thing that you can write in this biography about Ali ibn Abi Talib is to place him in the lowest level of Jahannam. This is in the time of Banu Umayyah. See, now that was the attitude of the rulers as far as Banu Umayyah were concerned. And with that hatred against Ali ibn Abi Talib, it has been extended to his father, Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam. Umayyads, in their own perspective of history, you know, they have divided the history. They knew very well. And they divided history into two parts. They see that in one part here is, on the right, is Ali and his family. And on the second part, in the second division, there is Muawiyah and his family. Now, Abu Sufyan is the father of Muawiyah, and he does not have any role in Islamic history. As far as history of Rasulullah Islam is concerned, he has done no sacrifice towards Islam. In fact, he was the one who wanted to destroy Islam from the beginning till the end. And because of circumstances that he became a Muslim, just by name. It took him 3 days. If you don't know, let me tell you, that when he was told to recite kalima, he is telling the Prophet, look at the audacity. He's telling the Prophet, I have no problem in saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. But to name you Muhammadur Rasulullah, I have to think about it. And he goes home at the time of Fath Makkah. After 3 days, he comes out, and very reluctantly, because Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, told him that if you don't do it, then the consequences will be very grave. And then, reluctantly, he decided to say, Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Very reluctantly. This is the type of personality that we have in Banu Umayyah, Abu Sufyan. So they don't have any good role as far as history of Islam is concerned. And on the other hand, look at Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. They don't like him. And his father, they know, has played a very major role in the survival of Islam during the early days in Makkah. It was a very difficult era, very difficult period. Therefore, they didn't like Ali, and they wanted to bring, you see what jealousy does? That when I cannot raise myself to the intellect and genius of a person, then what I do is try to, by any means, because of my jealousy, bring him down to my level. And this is what they have wanted, to bring the status of Ali ibn Abi Talib down. So the very first thing that they started was that this mentality of Takfiri, using the label of Kafir on Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam. They branded Abu Talib as Kafir. And that is the mentality that we see even continuing now in this era. And the Muslim world, unfortunately, this is very unfortunate, that the Muslim world is suffering because of the violence based on this Takfiri mentality. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. That is why, my brothers and sisters, the Shia historians, the Shias and the Shia historians call Abu Talib alayhi salam as Mazlum Tariq. Mazlum Tariq means the most oppressed person in the history of Islam. Somebody who played an important role in survival of Islam during the difficult early Meccan period, and he is being targeted as a kafir. And now we, in this century, see the mentality of the Takfiris group now, even now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala either give them guidance and wisdom, and if they are not capable of receiving guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then may Allah eliminate and destroy their powers in order not to hurt the mu'mineen of Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam around the world. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There is so much of material that I can give you. I mean, even 2 hours is not enough. There is so much that I could speak about Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam and Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salatu wassalam. But due to the constraint of time, my brothers and sisters, I will end this lecture by narrating only 2 incidents. One from Abu Talib's life and one from our 7th Imam's life. 2 narrations. One is concerning the Iman and faith of Abu Talib. You know, the propaganda machinery that came into being, that was instituted during the time of Banu Umayyah, the propaganda machinery, concocting false hadiths, false traditions, that the impact and the effect of that machinery, of that propaganda, was already being felt in the time of the Khilafat of Imam Ali alayhi salam, not now. Muawiyah at that time, he started this propaganda, and it was felt in the Khilafah at the time of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam himself. You know, it is a tragic, very tragic incident that I will relate. In Kufa, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, this is a narration from Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wassalam. He says in a public gathering, Galiban, you know, in Masjid Kufa, in Masjid, a person questions Imam Ali. Look at the audacity. Look at the audacity of these Arabs at that time. I mean, they have no shame. They have no akhlaq. No akhlaq. Look at the audacity. I mean, even we, in this time, we will not do that to a new convert whose parents are still non-Muslims. We would not dare talk about his parents or use such derogatory remarks against a new Muslim convert. But look at the audacity of this mal'oon. He says, Ya Amirul Mu'mineen, إنك بالمكان الذي أنزلك الله. Look at it. He says, إنك means you Ali ibn Abi Talib, you. بالمكان الذي أنزلك الله وأبوك معذب في النار. Look at this sentence that he utters. Then this is to hurt the family of the Prophet, hurt Imam Ali. This type of questions. He says, Ya Ali, Allah has endowed your status. Allah has blessed you, and He has blessed your status to the highest level. But as far as your father is concerned, al-ayadu billah, he has been damned to hellfire. Right in the face. Look at the audacity. He is the Khalifa of that time. And look at the audacity of these people at that time. And Amirul Mu'mineen, I mean, naturally, he turned red in anger in Masjid Kufa. And controlling his anger, he tells him, Ma rafazzaq Allahu fa'amak. Means, may Allah destroy your mouth. May Allah break your mouth. Ma hafazzaq Allahu famak. Means, may Allah break or destroy your mouth for uttering these words. He was so annoyed. Imam Ali was so annoyed. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ مُحَمَّدًا بِالْحَقِّ نَبِيًّا. And he says, Imam Ali says, I swear and I take an oath on that Allah who endowed prophethood on Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi salli ala Muhammad. He says, لو شفع أبي بكل مذنب على وجه الأرض يوم القيامة شفقه الله. شفقه الله. لو شفع أبي بكل مذنب على وجه الأرض في يوم القيامة شفقه الله. It's my father. He's replying to this man that my father has a status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that on the day of judgment, if he wishes, all the sinners on the day of judgment, on the day of Qiyamah, if he intercedes to Allah on their behalf, Allah will accept his intercession and forgive all the sinners. This is the status. Means this is the status of Abu Talib in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then sarcastically he tells him that, oh men, Abi mu'adhibu, Abi means my father, Abi mu'adhibu fin nar wa ibnuhu qasimun nari wal jannah. Means that where is your common sense? Where is your common sense? Are you sitting on your brains? I will say in my language, that are you sitting on your brains? That my father is cursed, damned to hellfire, and me being his son, I have been endowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will distribute and decide who goes to hell, who goes to hell, and who goes to paradise on the day of judgment. I am Qasimun Nari wal Jannah. And my father, does it enter your mind that my father is in hellfire? Doesn't make sense. So my brothers and sisters, this oppression to Abu Talib is not new. This has been churned out from Banu Umayyah's time, from the time of Muawiyah. From the time of Muawiyah. And Imam Ali was a witness to all that false propaganda that was being churned out in Syria by Muawiyah. And of course, he was grieved, he was tormented. And that is why we narrate that he is neither, like Abu Talib alayhi salam, is neither from the infallibles, he's not a ma'soom, nor is he from the Anbiya, nor from the prophets, but he is Muhsin Islam, means Islam and Allah himself are indebted to this personality because of his sacrifices. Islam is indebted to him. He has done great favors and sacrificed for Islam. He has protected the Prophet in that era, in that period, that when Abu Talib and Bibi Khadija, salamullahi alayhim ajma'in, when they passed away, these were the two supporters and the pillars of the Prophet during the time, the very difficult time in the history of Islam in Mecca. And after their death, can you imagine that Jibreel descends to the Prophet and instructs the Prophet that, Ya Rasulullah, this is a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Mecca is no more safe for you to continue your mission. Your life is in danger now. Now, amazing, strange. It's very strange. That Jibreel descends after the death of Abu Talib and he says, Ya Nabi Allah, Mecca is no more a safe abode. Your protectors are no more. Hazrat Abu Talib is no more. And if you see the history of Islam, after this, the death of Abu Talib and Bibi Khadija, he did not stay in Mecca anymore. He was instructed to leave and he immigrated to Medina. He made hijrah. Mecca is no more safe. So from the incidents, we deduce that Abu Talib was a Muslim. He was a Mazlum. He was a Muslim, a Mazlum, and the oppressed only because he is the father of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Same way today, same way, my brothers and sisters, today Shias are being branded as kafir, and the same fate was that of Abu Talib being branded as kafir. We are branded as kafir as Abu Talib was branded as kafir till today in this century. And therefore we say that, Ya Allah, may Allah guide them, and if they are not liable for guidance, may Allah protect the mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Shi'ani Ali ibn Abi Talib, from their evil intentions, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In the second incident, lesson to learn, now this is very important, from the life of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Like for example, he is this Imam who has taught us to have concern for each other in our community. I will relate to you an incident. To help our mu'mineen brothers and sisters. You know, we lived in East Africa or in the subcontinent, a different life. Lifestyle was different. Here, we know that our lifestyle here is different. But nevertheless, we have to try and put in an effort to seek opportunities whereby we can help and assist each and every brother and sister of our community, of this member of this community. Each other in this community, my brothers. A person approaches our seventh Imam. He was a native of the city of Ray. You know, city of Ray, you have heard this name. It's a town south of Tehran where the shrine of Shah Abdul Azim is located. And at that time, the city was famous. It was known as Ray. It was a melting point of the Arabian Empire, and especially the Iran. Especially Iran. It was a melting pot of Iran. And Umar ibn Sa'ad, if you remember, he wanted the governorship of this city, of this Mulk Ray, from Yazid. That he was promised that if he killed Hussein, he would be given the governorship of this city. It was a rich, very rich city. Tehran was nothing at that time. And this is what Umar Sa'ad wanted, and he damned himself to hellfire, and he did not even get the governorship from Yazid. Now, this person was a Shia resident there, and him and some others, you know, the governor of that time of Mulk Ray, of this province of Ray, were suffering excessively because of the taxes imposed on them by the governmental authorities. This guy was a well-to-do person, but the taxes were so exorbitant They were tired. They were suffering. His property was in danger of being confiscated if he was unable to pay these exorbitant taxes that were levied on them. He went to inquire the identity of the governor of that area, and he was told that his name is Ali bin Suri. The governor's name is Ali bin Suri. And the strange thing is that he's a Shia himself. Ali bin Suri is a Shia himself. So he didn't say a word. He travels to Medina to meet the seventh Imam, perhaps to perform Umrah or whatever. And he was granted an audience by the seventh Imam in Medina, and he explained to the Imam that his predicament, the taxes are exorbitant by this man and will go bankrupt. And he says, Ibn Rasulullah, the governor is also a Shia. So therefore, he requests Imam to intervene, to intercede on his behalf. That give me a letter of recommendation to him, Ya Imam, Ibn Rasulullah. So Imam gave him a letter, a very short letter, few vocabularies, hardly 3 sentences. And after Bismillah Salam and Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Imam says, I'lam, Ya Ali bin Suri, anna lillahi ta'ala ahashi dhalalan la yaskunuhu illa man asda illa akhihi ma'rufan aw nafassa anhu qarbahu aw adkhala qalbihi sururan. Imam writes to the governor, even aware, beware, he says to Ali bin Suri, beware that on the day of judgment, I'lam, O Ali bin Suri, anna Allah ta'ala tahta arshi dhilalan la yaskunuhu illa man asda illa akhihi ma'rufan aw nafassa anhu qarbahu aw adkhila qalbihi sururan. That, O governor of Ray, beware that on the day of judgment, Allah has created a canopy, created a shelter, and no one will be permitted to enter this shelter, but only that. Now, this is for us. This is for us to know. You see, this letter also resonates in this century for us. So this canopy is a shelter. No one will be permitted to enter this shelter, but only that individual who has looked after and helped his mu'min brother in his community, or solved his or her problems, or has made them happy, that community. So far-sighted. Look at the Imam, and today we have these writings in our history. That nobody will be allowed to enter this shelter, but that person, individual who looks after and helps his mu'min brother in his community, or solves his problems, or makes him happy. Not only about money. Either charity, physically solves his problems, or let joy enter the heart of a mu'min brother. And he says, وَهَذَا أَخُوكَ. Imam tells that governor, هَذَا أَخُوكَ. The one who delivers this letter, my message to you, is your mu'min brother. And wassalam. That's it. But he has conveyed a phenomenal message to us in these 3 sentences. In these 3 sentences, that we will not be granted a shelter on the day of judgment that Allah has created, unless and until in our Nama A'mal there is something written there that selflessly, without advertising, I have helped my mu'min brother at large, or even in small numbers, whatever I could. And that's the letter ended. And the man left for Makkah, performed his pilgrimage, then he returns home. And at night he went to the governor's house. At night, the doorman inquires of his business and tells him, please tell the governor that I am a messenger. I am a qasid of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Soon as the governor heard the name of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, he ran barefooted to welcome him to the door. He kissed the messenger on his forehead. He brought him in to the divan, to the lounge, and he told him to sit, make himself comfortable. He read the letter. He kissed the letter. He reads the letter of recommendation. Immediately, tears started rolling down his eyes, and he commands his aides, bring all the stuff, all the wealth that I have in my safe, in my house, everything that I have in my house. And it was brought. He divides all this wealth into two parts, and he tells this person that, brother, this property of mine, half is yours and half I will keep. And those items that are indivisible, I will pay you its value in half. Anything that is indivisible, you will take the value from me exactly in half. And then he asks him, oh brother, have I dealt with you fairly? And he says, yes. In fact, not fairly. He says, this is more than what I need. This is excessive. Please take some back. The governor summons to his revenue officer. He says, no. And then he summons his revenue officer, and he brings over, and he says, bring over the tax books, the tax records that you have, whatever is the amount owed by this person, write it off on my authority. Cancel all the taxes, eliminate all the taxes under his name. And he raised his taxes, and the governor inquires, are you happy with me? And certainly no doubt. He says, brother, this is more, in fact, this is more than I deserve. After a few months, this person visits Medina again. And when Imam grants him an audience, he goes and sees the Imam and narrates the full incident. Now look at this. This we have to understand, because this is applicable in our lives when we do this. He questions the Imam, Mawla, Yabna Rasulillah, are you happy with the actions of that governor? Has he made you happy? Yabna Rasulillah, and Imam says, Wallahi, faqad sarrani wa sarra amir al-mu'mineen, wallah laqad sarra jadda Rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi. Not only that he has made me happy, but by helping his mu'min brother, I am happy with him. My grandfather, Imam Ali, is happy with him. And Rasulullah, my father, whose blessings on him are, Rasulullah's blessings are on him. وَلَقَدْ سَرَّ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And then he adds further, Imam, that Allah is as well happy with him. You see the transitory thing? Ibn Rasulullah, he is happy. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib is happy. The Prophet of Islam is happy. And in turn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with him. This incident of Imam conveys to us, my brothers and sisters who are listening to me, the importance of being affectionate, of being merciful, of being compassionate and mindful, helpful of each other in our community, however large or however small. The wilayah that we belong to, the love of Ahlul Bayt that we have, the love of Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salatu wassalam, that we are commemorating his shahada, his martyrdom, demands that we be concerned of each other's affairs in this dunya, provide assistance as needed, my brothers and sisters. And this is a wasiyah. We can consider as a wasiyah of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. And what led to his martyrdom is another, amazing incident. Harun had come to, maybe you've heard this, maybe you've not heard this, but let me tell you the exact reason why Harun imprisoned Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. And I will end with this. Harun had come to Medina to perform Hajj, and he had come to Medina to pay his respects to the Prophet. So he goes with his entourage to Masjid al-Nabawi, to the grave of the Prophet. to the mausoleum of the Prophet and to show off. And he says, Assalamu alaikum ya, Assalamu alaikum yabna am. Assalamu alaikum yabna am means show off that salams to you, my cousin. Now, he is from the lineage of Abbas. Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, who is the uncle of the Prophet. So consequently, he is cousin of the Prophet. Now, Imam, he is there, and Imam comes in, and Imam alayhi salatu wassalam says, Assalamu alaikum ya abata. And this hurt Harun. He says, Assalamu alaikum, oh my father. Not even grandfather. He says, oh my father, ya abata. And Harun flares up. He is jealous. And he says, hello, on what basis? He says, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, on what basis have you called the Prophet abata? He's not your father. You are from Abu Talib, from Imam Ali. Yes, you are from Fatima's descendant also. But as your grandfather is Abu Talib and your Prophet is your great-grandfather or grandfather of yours, so is Abu Talib. So there is no difference between you and me. And Imam says, Harun, don't test me, don't try me, because you will not like it. So he says no, because he was angry. He was jealous, angry. So Imam asks him that, say for example, Harun, if the Prophet was present today in its time in front of you, and he requests your daughter's hand in marriage, what would you do? So he said, MashaAllah, I would be more than happy because he would become my son-in-law. I would immediately grant his request, his wish. I would marry my... So he said, this is the difference between you and me. You can get your daughter married to the Prophet, but he, because he's my father, it will not be possible. I cannot give my daughter in hand to his marriage because of my bloodline and blood relation to him. That is why he's my father. Otherwise, it would be a marriage of incest. You see the difference here, Harun? And Harun was so mad, that at the same moment he ordered his soldiers to arrest him. He did not even allow the Imam to go home and say goodbye to his family members. No, this is the tragedy with Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam. He arrested him and sends him off to Basra in prison. The jailer in Basra refused to poison him. Can you imagine? The jailer is refusing the orders of Caliph. And he was transferred to Baghdad. Today, if you see the Zindan Musa ibn Ja'far, those who are going for ziyarah, please try and make an extra effort to go and see and make ziyarah of that Zindan, of the dungeons in which Imam Musa ibn Ja'far was kept by her. So he was transferred to Baghdad. 2 jailers refused to poison him, the Imam. 2 jailers. We have seen, they said, Harun inquired of them, what is wrong with you people? And he says, Harun, we have seen nothing but piety in him. He's a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His piety is so pure that we will not color our hands with his blood. You can do whatever you want with us, but we are not going to kill him. Then literally they disobeyed the Caliph's command, the king's commands. Lastly, Harun transferred the Imam into the custody of a cursed person who soiled his hands on killing the Imam. Imam was in shackles. He was in chains. He was not free. When he was placed in the dungeons, they used to bind him in chains and shackles. And this man was Sindi bin Shahid. And in this month, on the last ending days of Rajab, my brothers and sisters, it is very sad that Sindi bin Shahid poisoned the Imam. And for 5 days, Imam did not die immediately. For 5 days, Imam was tortured and tormented with the effects of the poison. And finally, he left this world on the 25th of Rajab, my brothers and sisters. The Mazlumiyat of Imam Al-Kadhim is, this is the only Imam. You will see no other Imam who has died or was killed or martyred in the dungeons in shackles and chains except the 7th Imam. And this is the tragedy, that he is the only Muslim Imam who was killed in the dungeons of Harun while he was in chains and shackles. Not only that, he was tied up in chains, and when they killed him, his Mazlumiyat does not end there. They brought the body of the Imam Musa ibn Jafar. Instead of arranging for funeral, they kept the body of our Imam on the bridge of Baghdad for 3 days. He was still shackled in chains, bound in chains, and his body lay on the bridge of Baghdad. على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. مات الحسين.
ہائے کاظم ہائے ہائے کاظم 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 یا سیدی یا مولائی یا موسیٰ ابن جعفر کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے یہ کیسا ستم ہے ظالم نے میت پہ پھول رکھوائی ہے یہ کیسا ستم ہے ظالم نے میت پل پہ رکھوائی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے یہ کیسا بے کس قیدی ہے مرنے پہ بھی جو آزاد نہیں کیسا بے کس قیدی ہے مرنے پہ بھی جو آزاد نہیں لاشیں پہ بقیہ سے ہائے ایک بی بی رونے آئی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے یہ 14 سال سے قیدی تھا اور آج بھی ہائے قیدی ہے یہ 14 سال سے قیدی تھا اور آج بھی ہائے قیدی ہے مظلوم کے لاشے پہ اب تک فریاد کنا تنہائی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے تابوت کو میرے مولا کے مزدور اٹھا کر لاتے ہیں تابوت کو میرے مولا کے مزدور اٹھا کر لاتے ہیں مظلوم کی لاش اٹھانے کو نہ بیٹا ہے نہ بھائی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے تن کی زنجیریں مولا کی غربت پہ نوحہ کرتی ہیں تن کی زنجیریں مولا کی غربت پہ نوحہ کرتی ہیں اور خاک اڑا کر کاظم کے لاشے کو ردا پہنائی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو
زنجیر ستم پہنائی ہے
وہ تو کہ گراں کا ایک نشان گردن پہ ابھی تک باقی ہے وہ تو کہ گراں کا ایک نشان گردن پہ ابھی تک باقی ہے مولا نے میرے اس طرح رسم سجاد نبھائی ہے کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم
پہنائی ہے
کاظم کے پاک جنازے کو زنجیر ستم پہنائی
ہے
کیا حسین کیا حسین کیا حسین کیا حسین کیا حسین متوجہ زیارت السلام علیکم یا نبی اللہ السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ السلام علیکم یا حبیب اللہ السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا ام المؤمنین خدیجۃ الکبریٰ صلوات اللہ علیہا السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین یا سید الوصیین یا علی ابن ابی طالب علیہ السلام السلام علیکم یا قرۃ عین رسول یا فاطمہ الزہراء سیدۃ النساء العالمین السلام علیکم یا امام الحسن المجتبی علیہ السلام السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکم یا ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیکم یا ابن امیر المؤمنین والسید الوصیین السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین خصوصاً سیدی و مولائی یا ابا الفضل العباس ابن امیر المؤمنین علی علیہ السلام السلام علیکم یا مولا و ابن مولا السلام علیکم یا غریب الغرباء السلام علیکم یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء السلام علیکم یا شمس شموس وعنیس نفوس ایها المدفون بارض طوس کن شفیعنا و شفیع والدی فی یوم الجزا السلام علیکم یا علی ابن موسی رضا و رحمت اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا صاحب العصر والزمان الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان ومن شر الشیطان السلام علیکم یا کعبۃ الایمان السلام علیکم یا مظہر الایمان السلام علیکم یا شریک القرآن السلام علیکم یا امام الانس والجان السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد